Hello and welcome this morning. This is the In Christ Co-Resurrection prayer practice. I'd like to welcome you this morning to this morning's practice. We are almost to the end of a little series that we have been doing, and this is a series on when you feel like you really get stuck, how do you move into relationship with the circumstance that you feel is getting you stuck or that is the sticking point. And Jesus gives us some very specific instructions on how to be in relationship with that, in an embodied relationship with that, through the mystery and power of our living Christ. And I'm going to walk you through the steps that he has provided for us. Also, these are the steps I have been participating in for the past 5 years, and they work. And so it just requires us taking the time to actually move into relationship with the way that we are being invited to do that. So for this morning's practice, you're going to want to have a journal with you. If you have not participated in the first 4 parts of this series, it's okay. In some ways, this can stand alone, and you can still get a benefit from each class because we are primarily moving into relationship with this mystery and power of support and provision and allowing your nervous system to actually recognize and receive that. And so no matter what's happening in your life, each of these classes is going to provide you a bit of softness and support for the intensity that you are walking through on your journey. So, welcome. These classes are led by our living Jesus Christ, and I am just here offering them so that people can connect with that. So, I'm really glad that you are here. We're going to begin this morning by the way that Jesus invites us to begin all of our moments of conscious awareness, which is to first notice in this moment how you are supported by the place where you are seated. So take a moment and allow yourself to feel how you are held and supported by your seat. And as you notice how your body is held by the place where you are seated, you want to notice, where do you feel the most held by your seat? Where do you feel the most held by your seat? And as you notice the body part where you feel the most held by your seat, you want to take a moment and write that down. So as you're noticing how your body is supported, does your back feel the most held? Do your hips, your legs, your feet? Take a moment and you're going to write down the area that feels the most supported to you. And you're saying, here is where I feel the most supported. And as you are allowing your brain to recognize where you are supported, you want to notice, what does that experience of support feel like in your body? How do your muscles respond to that? How does your mind respond to that? And so Jesus tells us that God is alive in everything around us. In order to offer us living provision and living support, God expresses itself through everything around us. And Jesus helps us to learn to recognize and receive that living provision, to receive that living support by recognizing God alive in the place where you are seated. In the beginning of this class, you're learning how to just recognize that you're physically supported, but you're going to feel through that place where you are supported into the chair. Jesus lets us know that this is why we miss this. This is why we don't normally are able to even feel it, because our brain doesn't even know how to recognize that we are supported. So you're going to feel through the place where your chair is supporting you. And you're going to feel through the physicality of that support and into the living mystery alive right where you are seated. It's holding you right where you are. So take a moment and allow yourself to feel the mystery of God's heart and hand holding you right in the place where you are seated. And you're letting your brain see, here is where I am the most connected to recognizing and receiving God's living heart and hand. Here is where I am the most connected to recognizing and receiving God's living heart and hand. And you want to notice how your system responds to being supported by our living God, by the mystery of our living God in that way. What begins to happen to your muscles? What begins to happen to your breathing as you are connecting in that way? So, participants, Jesus is wanting me to take just a moment today to talk about fatigue. I know that we're in the middle of a series and we're um, kind of working our way through the emotional sensory core, which is how we experience an embodied experience through the mystery and power of Christ. But Jesus is saying that as you are coming into this space of being held by the mystery of God, you're going to notice how tired you are. And that's going to ebb and flow. Sometimes you're going to feel softness and more aliveness, but many times you're going to be just really tired as you are recognizing how you're held because you're going to be feeling how much you have been carrying. And this happens kind of at the beginning of each of our challenges. You're going to be feeling this tiredness, but then this is going to extend on as you're doing these practices. And um, the good news, bad news is that more challenges are going to be able to show up at the same time. And so as that's happening, you're going to be tired again. And the good thing with being tired is that that's my threshold, that's my doorway that I walk through as I allow the fatigue and as I allow myself to rest when fatigued, that the Christ can actually come alive within me. And this is in the Bible, they're going to refer to how when you're weak, you're actually strong in Christ, and the divine needs us to be weakened in order for for the Christ to take us on a different path, in order for us to go a new direction. But I have to tell you that this is a very challenging part of this because the fatigue is real. You want to lay down and go to sleep, which Jesus is inviting us to do in the rest practices, to lay down and go to sleep, even if you just do the 15-minute practice. That's a huge way to start tapering into being held in Christ and being renewed by Christ. But being able to know that the fatigue is appropriate and a normal part of our journey. Like I'm going to be fatigued, it's going to be a part of this. He's just wanting me to say that. I think I could probably say that in every class, and we're still going to have a hard time really allowing that. So Jesus is saying, take a moment and notice your own system right now. We're going to check into the chat box and we're going to say, in what ways are you tired right now? Are you physically tired, emotionally tired, mentally tired, all of the above? In what ways are you tired right now? We're going to type it into the chat box. So, participants, we're going to tie a couple classes together today because we're talking about this side topic, which is being tired or fatigued. And that's going to be a part of this journey over and over again. So, as you're learning to acclimate to that in your life and learning how to be in relationship with that in a very kind way, that allows you to take next steps through the power of Christ rather than through your own trudging and efforting. So we're going to be holding a little bit of this tiredness, but we're also noticing today we are in a series talking about what is this main challenge that is present in your life right now. If this is your first time in a class, just notice what is really intense for you right now. What are the challenges that are happening? You may have more than one. I have about 12 right now of things that are happening. And so you're just noticing here are my challenges that are present, whether you're in the series with us working on this or whether you're just doing this on your own, just notice the challenges that are present for you today. And you're going to take a moment and you're going to write those down into your journal. And as you are noticing those, Jesus is saying, notice how your breathing becomes impacted as you are facing that challenge or those challenges. What begins to happen to your breathing as you're facing those challenges? How does your breathing respond to the challenges that are present? So, what we're invited to do in the radical relationship with Christ is to allow. We are strength training our capacity to allow this restricted breath pattern. This is one of the hardest things to do because this is like how we experience that we live is through bringing in oxygen. And so this is a hard thing to really allow and allow Christ to offer us a new power. I know when another short side note, I know when I had the near death experience where I drowned, and Jesus at that point came to me and said, I'm going to take your breath away and I'm going to give you a new breath. But I'm going to take your breath away and I'm going to have you walking into these very dark valleys of your own life and other people's lives. You're going to be walking into the dark valleys of their lives, and your breath is going to be taken away so that you're going to get a new breath, a Christ breath. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. Now I understand that more, having done this for over the last 5 years. And the invitation is that we are allowing this restrictive pattern to be there. This is how I breathe when I'm overwhelmed. This is how I breathe when I'm challenged. And I'm holding that breath rate. I'm holding the tightness in my lungs, and I'm allowing myself to breathe this small breath. And at the same time, I'm recognizing how I am supported. So Jesus is saying today, when we're going into this rest practice, you're going to lay down and feel how you're supported laying down and really hold. Here's how my breathing becomes challenged when I'm so stirred up from this circumstance. Here's how my breathing becomes challenged. And notice what happens is you're just very tenderly allowing it rather than trying to take in these big breaths and breathe normal and calm yourself down when you're not calm because the circumstances right now are not calming circumstances. And so we have to walk through this appropriate holding of this is what is real for me. This is what's happening in my nervous system today. And I am not going to be the fixer of that, but I am invited to be the one that gathers that in so that something new can happen through me. And although participants, whether you're a regular here or whether you're new to these practices, I know the brain might be trying to figure that out, but this is something that you're going to understand in the practice of it. And so Jesus is inviting us to do a 15-minute rest right now in this class today. You want to take a moment and find a place where you can lay down comfortably and you can rest. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have my audio on for this because I'm going to walk you through it as I do it because it's a short practice. So I'm going to also lay down and I'm going to walk you into how do you hold both of these and allow your nervous system to rest so that the Christ aliveness can work through you in a much more profound way. Go ahead and make your way there now. And so as you find yourself laying down, you want to feel again, where are you the most supported in this position? And as you feel where you're the most supported, you want to just allow yourself to experience. Here is where I'm supported by this place where I'm laying down. And then you want to consider again the challenge that you are facing, and you're noticing how your lungs, how your breathing responds to that challenge. Here's where my lungs become restricted when I'm overwhelmed or when I'm facing this challenge, just allowing that to be that way. Here's how my lungs breathe when I'm stressed, when I'm anxious. And then again, you're noticing how you are supported by the place where you are seated or laying down. So you're going to take a moment now and notice how that feels. Notice what it feels like for your fatigue, and also notice what it feels like for your breathing pattern as you have consciously allowed yourself to lay and rest in the place where you are supported. Take a moment and let your brain recognize what that feels like. And then we're going to very gently and slowly just transition back to the seated position. And so you're noticing how you feel now compared to before. And I'm thinking about how important these rest practices are. And I'm thinking of a many times in my life when I was going through experiences that I desperately needed these. Like one of them was when I had just had my son, and I didn't have these practices at that time. This was like, in the midst of quite an overwhelming period of my life. And I remember I used to collapse into rest or um, use coping mechanisms like watching TV, and I would be like a rabid dog, like don't come in here. Ah. And if I would have had these practices to use to put into that time frame, I would have getting some traction in actually feeling restored and recovered in my times that I did have where I could rest. And so being able to recognize that this capacity to consciously rest into our living Christ in an embodied way is imperative. I cannot move forward in Christ if I'm not resting the old ways in which I have suffered. It's not going to be a behavioral change. It's not going to be a change in communication alone. It's going to be a change in where you are actually getting your power from to live your day. And that's a significant thing, and it's not something that's modeled in our world in a way that is common. This is very uncommon, and yet it's how we are built to be living. And so when you are looking at how you feel right now, for some of you, if you've been participating with this for a while, you might feel a little bit more refreshed by letting yourself rest. For some of you, if this is maybe your first time even trying this, you might be exhausted. You might feel like way, way, way more tired. And that's because you need a lot of these little rest practices. And if you go to the replay page, there's a 15-minute one. And if you just start feeling when you're hitting that wall and you're about ready to lose your mind, if you go down and do that, push play on that 15-minute rest practice and let yourself do that, and notice how you feel after, it's going to give you something to hang on to get you through these times of being in really intense experiences where your whole world is reorganizing. Maybe you're going through cancer treatments. Maybe you've just had a kid. Maybe you're going through a job change. Maybe you have some things that are happening with your loved ones, or you're coming to a new phase in your life where you're wanting to do something drastically different. We're all being reorganized in our life at all times. And so being able to understand how did God really build us to go through these times of reorganization? He built us to be able to learn how to recognize and rest into the aliveness of Christ in all things. And this is what Jesus is teaching us with these practices. Now, right now, we're in this series of learning how to hold what happens with our breathing. And this is a very in-depth topic. This is an in-depth part of the emotional sensory core. When I'm saying emotional sensory core, I'm meaning the 7 regions in your body where your experience comes alive when you are really holding it. And Jesus takes us through this is like a deeper perspective, a deeper training when we start working with the breath. So Jesus was saying, yes, we can work with the breath. We can also work with fatigue. And so allowing yourself to support how your breathing is being challenged and also just allowing yourself to support the fatigue. I know it's 2 different topics. I hope I'm not confusing you guys, but just want to offer something that's also a little bit more tangible, a little bit more level 1, depending on where you're coming from with this practice. Also notice, guys, I am available to you guys for private sessions. If you ever want to do that, I'm certainly available for that. I do those online and also in person and can help you if you're just getting started out or if you've been doing this for a while and you have some questions about that. So as we're transitioning from rest back to here into the seated position, let's take a moment and check in. How does your breathing feel now? Or how does your fatigue feel now after having rested? Let's take a moment and share what you notice. Mhm. So Jesus is also wanting me to point out that he's saying, Adrian, just take a moment and think about when in your life is there anything that you can do or take outside of consciously resting that gives you the result of consciously resting, gives you the result of being refreshed and clear and expanded from your nervous system, from your body system's capacity? The answer is nothing. There's nothing else that we can do that actually gives us this result. I can drink a bunch of caffeine, I can eat a bunch of cookie dough, and that just makes me all wacky. It might give me some energy, but it's like riding a Bronco around. It's not going to help me get done what I need to do in Christ. It's not going to be a clear, calm, focused, stable energy. It's going to be all over the place. I could snort some cocaine. That's going to give me about the same thing. I wouldn't know. I've never done it, but I've worked around people who do, and they're not going in a clear, calm, straight line, you know? And so it's really being able to recognize that this really is the only way towards being renewed in the way that we are designed divinely to be renewed. There's nothing else that we can do. I can watch an entire 3 seasons of a Netflix show, disconnecting from my life, thinking that that's going to restore me, and it doesn't. It just makes me then also sad that the show's over. And then I can't like hide out there anymore. And so it's like Jesus is saying this rest and this renewal is available to all of us all the time. And we're going to kind of go through learning to stop grabbing these other things that are not renewing us and learning how to be more diligent with um, participating in the practice of consciously resting into Christ that does renew us. And as we get consistent with that, we finally get some traction underneath our systems to move forward in a way that's going to be kinder for us and also kinder for everybody else around us. Yeah. So I know today's class is a little bit elusive. It just really leaves us with the conscious awareness that there's a lot more work and resting to be done. There's a lot more time here that's needed to do this. And this is actually appropriate and it's real and it's the truth of what can actually help us rather than running out into a bunch of stuff that is going to be dead end roads all around. So I thank you all for being here today. I thank you to the living Jesus Christ who is walking me through where my path is leading me, where my purpose and my Christ journey is waiting. And Jesus is showing me how to do that in Christ. And I keep running ahead and I keep getting overwhelmed by looking at all the circumstances rather than looking at Christ, rather than looking to rest, rather than remembering that I'm meant to be doing this from a place of being fully supported. And I find myself popping out and yammering around a bit and then coming back home. And this is actually what it looks like. This is what the dance looks like. And so I hope these practices are helping you. I'm thankful to Jesus to keep reining me in. And I aspire to do my best to continually return, although I'm human and we're all human. And I appreciate that it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be quite messy. But I'm thankful that we have a process that does work better than anything else I've ever seen. I look forward to seeing you guys soon. We have the rest practice up next at 12 o'clock from 12 to 1, but they're also always on the replay available to you guys so you can fit it into your day and punctuate your day with that rest and restoration. Obviously, I need that today. At any time that works for your schedule. And so I hope you guys are able to take advantage of that. And then this evening we have our evening practice at 8:30, which is also available on the replays. So thank you guys, and I wish you guys a wonderful day. Take care.